Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Pigskin. We had a great show early on with Fire Up. Myself and Mark Mancini talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Candy was on Chicks and Salsa earlier. Now we are back at it again, but Inside the Pigskin. We have a new guest here that hopefully will be a regular. His name is Travis Holmes, and I'll introduce everybody after. Travis, why don't you give everybody a formal introduction of yourself? I know Travis. I met him up in Jacksonville with the Jacksonville Jaguars game, and we struck a friendship. And anytime I strike a friendship, then they get to come on here. So, all right, Travis, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
I appreciate you having me, Scott, Candy. Thank you, gentlemen, for not kicking me out the room immediately. Coming in raving all my Jaguars gear and Jaguar accessories behind me. But my name is Travis Holmes. I am a Jacksonville Jaguars consulting correspondent for the studentofthegame.com and the play analyst for A7BN Sports. Former play-by-play analyst with SB Nation and BigCatCountry.com. Took some time off to work my regular job and have some kids, and now I'm coming back into the fold and trying to get the following back up. Get back into the media game, and it's been a great experience this year and seen some epic games. So I appreciate Scott allowing me this venue to talk some sports, talk some Jaguars, and you can find me on Trav Likes Bacon on Twitter because, unfortunately, I'm the one vegan that likes bacon. Weird how that works. And Travis Holmes on Facebook.
All right. Well, welcome to the broadcast. And, of course, our regular crew, Candy Ebling. Welcome back, Can.
Thanks, Scott. Glad to be here.
Jordan Long.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me again.
You're very welcome. Always a pleasure to have you. Of course, Jordan Long is one of those kind of guys. We rotate him from inside the pigskin, 108 Stitches baseball talk. So all I need to do is give Mr. Long a message. This is where you're at. Same night, different place, different show. No problem with the old thumbs up. Rick Curdy, Mr. Opinion.
Hey, Scott. Hey, guys. How are you doing?
All right. And, of course, Travis is. And then Mel Farr Jr., former running back of the Los Angeles Rams. Welcome back, Mel.
Thank you. Great to be back.
All right, well, you know what? We got a pretty busy show, to say the least. I mean, we really do. And I had to lead off with the Jacksonville Jaguars 27-point epic comeback win over the Chargers. Of course, I will tell you that Travis and we've seen quite a few good games. I met you over at the Dallas Cowboys game, and I got to go to the Titans game as well. So, you know what? I'm going to start off with you, Travis, all right? Let's talk about what all three, you and I and Candy, saw on Saturday.
Man, we saw some I want to call it incredible, but that I don't think that's a true statement. So how about this? We saw some terrible first half football play, and then we saw some great, competent coaching and great playing, and just NFL players playing like NFL players as far as the Jaguars are concerned. From the middle of the second quarter to the end of the game, and on the Los Angeles Chargers side, we saw a team that not know what to do with themselves. They just tripped over themselves every step of the way, as far as coaching decisions, as far as missing opportunities on the field. And I don't want to get all into the specifics, but let's just say it this way. The Chargers didn't run the ball enough. They just didn't try to. They didn't try to run enough screens and short throws to Austin Eckler. They didn't try to keep the clock running, basically. And unfortunately, they tried their best to. They didn't play an intelligent game for as much as the Chargers head coach claims to be an analytics guy. He claims to be, that's who he is, but that's not the way that he coached the rest of that game. But it was interesting. We talked about it during the game, Scott. There was a point where the Chargers scored 24 points and they had 120 total yards of offense. And I think they believed that they were better than they were. They believed that they were that 24-0 score, even though their offense literally hadn't had to drive outside of the red zone. They got the ball 3 times inside of the red zone. That will give you 24 points. So it was a great game, but at the end of it all, Dougpederson pencil whipped Brandon Staley. I mean, he did. And if you want to get back into that later, I'll get you into some of the details. But it was really, really smart, offensive play calling from his part.
All right, well, that's fine. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. We mainly have tonight, folks, just to give you an overview of the show. I'm going to go over 4 main topics tonight with the Jaguars leading off, and everybody will have a parting shot of their own. I don't like to restrict my commentators to just what I do. So we obviously the focus tonight will be on the 3 Florida teams that made it into the playoffs, and of course, I have another great nugget here. Final 8 starting quarterbacks by age. I should use the word nuggets. And Jordan Long's in a area where they have a team called the Nuggets. Oh, what a segue to Jordan Long. Okay, my goodness, Mr. Denver Nugget. All right, give me your interpretation of what you saw with the Jaguars Chargers.
It really looked like it's what the Chargers do. They go out to these big leads. It was 27-0. They were looking great, and then in the second half, they imploded. This is what they do. The Chargers chargered. What I mean by that is they don't finish games. But I do go back to maybe the false start call that Bosa was as upset about. It really didn't look like a false start. You could tell at that point he was frustrated. But in the end, though, you got to keep your composure. And ultimately, had he not committed that infraction, Jaguars, all they had to do was kick a field goal to tie the game rather than, kicking a field goal to win the game. It's the Chargers. They implode. And I'm still surprised that Staley's still the head coach today. But then again, this is what the Chargers do throughout their franchise. They go to big leagues. They can't finish games. So was I surprised they lost? Not really.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, it was the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde game. Trevorlawrence was like Mr. Hyde, horrible throwing, interceptions. It was like, what's going on with him? People were flipping out. He looks awful. And then the second half came, and he looked like John Elway. He looked like the great quarterback that we know that he is. Great comeback for him. Start of his legacy. I think I've been saying this for the last 2 years. He's going to be the next Peyton Manning. And this is a great Peyton Manning comeback that he did. And the Chargers, unfortunately, they're the Chargers. They do this all the time. I remember when they went with it 14-2 with Mark Schottenheimer out in the first round, and then they fired Mark Schottenheimer, and he went 14-2. So this is what they do. I think they're cursed. Staley, people are surprised, but they did fire their offensive coordinator today. So, he was let go. So you knew they were going to make some changes. But I had a feeling Staley would keep his job. I think if he didn't make the playoffs this year, he would have been gone. But that was such a bad meltdown game that a little surprising that he's there. But they did fire their coordinator. But great game for the Jaguars. And Dougpederson just shows what a great coach he is. And I love when he rolls that dice. He takes a lot of gambles, and his gambles paid off. So great game by the Jaguars, not so much for the Chargers.
Yeah, well, I believe the Chargers not only fired their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, I think they let their quarterback coach go too, didn't they?
Yeah, yes, they did.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a change, you might get rid of the top 2. So I'm going to throw it over to Malfar Jr. Now, some thoughts about the Jaguars, who I have to tell you right now, they're on house money anyways.
Watching the game, you kind of had a feeling that something was going to happen in the second half. You listen to Tony Dungy, and I can't remember who else they were talking about at halftime, who else they were talking to at halftime. And Tony Dungy had been in a similar situation, being down quite a bit, and they came back and won. And you just talked about things that you needed to do in order to get yourself back in the game. And all of a sudden, you see, Jacksonville is doing exactly what he said they needed to do in order to get back in the game. Now, Trevor Lawrence couldn't have played any worse than he did in the first half. 4 interceptions in the first half. I think he had 3 in the first quarter. That's just unheard of. And you can see it was probably the nerves were probably getting to him. And I think Doug Peterson is the right coach for him. Got him calmed down at halftime. Hey, man, just settle down. It's a regular ball game. Hey, let's just, take it one series at a time, one snap at a time, and let's go out there and try to win this ball game. Defensively, they played well. Obviously, in the first half, they were at a disadvantage defensively because of the field position. But in the second half, defensively, they played very well. They only gave up 3 points in the second half, and you knew somebody was going to pay the price for that epic collapse. It's unfortunate that it happens to be the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach, but at the same time, you have to wonder, what it is that they were thinking about, that they only ran the ball, only a few times in the second half. That's the importance of being able to run the football. People talk about, you got to be able to, throw the football. That's the sexy part of the game. But when you get up, and especially when you get up big, you need to try to shorten the game. And the way you shorten the game is you run the football. That clock is continuing to run. And that's something that they got away from. And you got to be able to pick up first downs as well. So, yeah, maybe first and second down, you're running the ball, try to get yourself in third manageable situations and let your quarterback do what he does so that you continue to move the football down the field and you continue to, drain the time on that clock. So the question has to be, what were they thinking about as far as offensive play calling was concerned in the second half? What did they do? I know they came out trying to be aggressive. I remember them coming out being aggressive in the second half, throwing the ball around just like they did in the first half, but they weren't as successful. They weren't as efficient. And then again, they got to be able to run the football. They talk about how great Austin Eckler is. He just became a bystander pretty much in the second half. But you have to take your hats off to the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they were able to accomplish. Especially Trevor Lawrence being able to shake that off and come out there and play with confidence in the second half. And the defense held up and gave them opportunities to, got them the ball back and gave them opportunities to score, and they did that. So
let me go over the story of the Jaguars before I turn over to Gandy. What a difference a year makes. Urban Meyer season 3-14, Doug Pederson 9-8. I mean, I count Meyer for all the losses, even though Darrell Bevel served as the interim guy. We all know that Urban Meyer was a king of that dumpster fire that he had. And then we talk about the largest comebacks in NFL postseason history. Let's think about it. We go back to 1992, the Bills 32 points, 2013, the Colts 28. This year, the Jaguars are 27. And we know the Patriots in 2016 at 25. So we talk about the master of the big comebacks. Travis and I both know it, and so does Candy all too well, right? Down 17-0 with the Raiders. How did that turn out? 27-20 win. The Dallas Cowboys, where I met Mr. Holmes, down 27-10, won 40-34 in overtime. Dramatic fashion, walk-off. I think it was Rayshon Jenkins with the walk-off touchdown, right?
Yep.
And then finally, the Chargers down 27-0. We all know how that turned out, 31-30. Now, the games that we attended, we saw the Dallas game, the division clincher, the 20-16 win over the Tennessee Titans, and the LA Chargers game. And the last two games drew over 70,000 fans. A couple more notes before I turn it over to Candy. The Jags are the first team to reach the playoffs after drafting number one in back-to-back seasons. And 2021, they snapped up Trevor Lawrence, and 2022, Trayvon Walker. And now, when I had Mark Mancini and I do Fire Up before this show started earlier tonight, Mancini actually picked the Jaguars to defeat Kansas City 30-27. And he sounded, that's a bold pick. But the guy's he's been riding the Jaguars all year that they would win it. So I had to give him his due. Right? Anybody's got to give the man his due. If you're riding somebody, you're not a bandwagon guy. So give Mark credit for doing it. We'll see if it works out. We'll hope if we're leading with our heart, we hope that's how it turns out. But with that said, I'm going to turn over to Candy. What do you have, Can?
So we were lucky enough to be there and cover this game with Travis. One of the questions that was asked to Doug during the media at the end was, Doug, from your perspective, having played quarterback, can you relate and give us some appreciation for what quarterback Trevor Lawrence did tonight with throwing 4 picks and rallying back, throwing 4 touchdowns? Doug's like, yeah, I sure can. I played with one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in Brett Favre. And there were times he didn't have a great first half and came back in the second half and he could light it up. That's what I love about Trevor and his demeanor and his aggressiveness and the ability to just forget and move on. When we talked to Trevor in his press conference, he said at one point, just like Mel said, he went to his teammates and he said, there is no 27-point play that is going to get us back in this game. We have to take it one play at a time, one score at a time. I love that. And then when they talked to Chargers coach, he said that they failed in all 3 phases of the game in the second half. All 3.
No kidding.
We're only firing the offensive coordinator. You failed in all 3. And that wasn't the first game you did that in. The one thing I do want to say, and obviously I'm pulling for the Jags this weekend. The one stat that I find very interesting is Trevor Lawrence is 37-0 playing on Saturdays. He has never lost on a Saturday in his high school, college, or NFL career. Go Trevor.
Go figure. Okay. Well, by the way, I want to thank George Eichhorn and Beth Truesdale Greenberg for being in the chat room with our comments. So, of course, you'll get to know Travis, George, sooner or later. I'm going to put you on the show with him. So, George Eichhorn and I have worked together for 43 years, and he's a big part of our team. He's not on tonight, but he'll be on another time, Travis. So, like I said, we plan to bring you on as often as you want to come on. But I've worked with George dating back to our days back in 1979 when I started as producer for ABC Radio in Detroit. So, and Beth, she was a part. Yeah, it just shows you the age card a little bit. So, and Beth, what can I say? I've known Beth since my college days at University of South Florida. Very good friend. She's actually out of Atlanta. So, with that said, okay, now that we've talked about the Jaguars, we'll go to South Florida. The Miami Dolphins, I have to admit, can hang their heads high with a third-string quarterback, Skylarthompson, losing 34-31. So, let's face the reality. They've been banged up. The quarterback position hasn't been the most stable on the planet, but yet they were game in Orchard Park, New York, against a very heavily favored Bills team. All right, now I'm going to turn it around over to Jordan. Jordan, give me your thoughts about the Dolphins.
I honestly thought Skylarthompson played a heck of a game, but it's still the Bills. The Bills are one of the probably the 1 or 2, 3 Super Bowl favorites to go to the Super Bowl. Plus, you're playing in Buffalo. I mean, Skylarthompson thrown into the Wolves and actually played a heck of a game. I mean, you didn't have Tua Tagovailoa, you didn't have Teddy Bridgewater, and yet he played his heart out. I mean, there's not much more you could say for the guy. I really thought this was going to be a complete blowout by the Bills. It almost looked like it up 17-0, but Miami, stayed strong and almost came back. So hats off to them for a great year. So next year, though, with a healthy Tua Tagovailoa, I think they're going to be a playoff team again. But as far as this year, couldn't ask for a better finish, even though that, yes, it stings that you lost by 3, but you're still with basically a rookie quarterback. So hats off. They played well.
Rick?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a blowout. I thought it'd be a rout. And good for Miami. They made it close. They only lost by 3. They had a rookie quarterback just throw it in there, and he played great. He really did. And so I think if you're a Dolphin fan, he has something to be looking forward to next season. And the Bills are the Bills. They're one of the favorites. They got one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. And so, they've been one of the favorites for the last couple of years to win the Super Bowl. And the young team, I remember many, many years they went through that drought. Was it 17 years? They didn't go to the playoffs, and now they're in the playoffs every year. And the Dolphins, unfortunately, I think they had the second longest drought of playoff wins. They haven't won a playoff game in quite a while, so that's still there. But they played a great game. I really thought it was going to be a complete, massive blowout, especially with the rookie quarterback. But they played very well. So hats off to the Dolphins.
What about you, Travis?
Being a Florida resident, I have to appreciate all the Florida teams generally, as long as they're not playing each other. So I did appreciate the fact that Mike McDaniel, he truly had this team up and ready to play this game. I was questioning that walking into it, kind of like everybody else. We kind of thought that would be a blowout. They were very competitive. They pulled out that old Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens defense. They played a lot of that cover 0 against them with the guys 10 yards off, and Josh Allen struggled with it. I mean, he turned the ball over 3 times. Had the 2 INTs and then the fumble for the touchdown. I mean, that was the difference in the game, if we want to be honest about it. It wasn't necessarily that Skylar did well on offense, because his game was honestly pretty mediocre. He game managed, but he still had the 2 turnovers himself. But he's a backup, so that's kind of what you'd expect, unfortunately. But the defense definitely held their own and kept them in that game. So that was a commendable performance, especially with everything that they were up against and everything that was going on with the backup, quarterback and, Tua himself with his whole concussion issue. So, fingers crossed everything works out well for that, in the offseason. And maybe we can see a fully healthy Miami Dolphins going into next season. That would be great.
All right, Mel.
Well, you look at the season, they split their games, Miami and Buffalo, and they played, Miami played them tough. if it wasn't for a couple drop passes, we might have a different outcome because those passes kind of changed the momentum in the game. Waddle dropped a pass early on. I think Tyreek Hill, he dropped a pass later on in the game as well. And if it had not been for those drop passes, because the game did kind of get away from them a little bit, and then they kind of found their way, clawed their way back into the ball game with the rookie quarterback. But I think for the Bills, it was probably kind of like a trap game. They were, riding obviously very high on emotions the prior week with the news regarding Damar Hamlin and his recovery process, and then kind of probably looking forward to playing Cincinnati next week because they know that's a big game and they know they got to get over that hurdle. I mean, they're the defending AFC champions, and if they want to go to the Super Bowl, it's gonna they're gonna have to go through Cincinnati. I think they might have got caught looking at that game, not really because if you got a third string quarterback now, granted. They run the same system there in Miami pretty much as they run in San Francisco, and San Francisco is doing very well with a third string quarterback as well. So it doesn't surprise me that he played well because, those guys know how to with the offense, as far as the offense is concerned, they know how to kind of adjust the offense to fit that personnel or to fit that particular person. And you could see that they did that with the quarterback that they had in there. But I think it was kind of a trap game for Buffalo because I think they're still dealing with the raw emotions of Damar Hamlin, but at the same time, they're looking forward to playing Cincinnati. Obviously, that game wasn't completed a couple weeks ago, right. And they knew that in order to get to the Super Bowl, they're gonna have to beat the defending champs.
All right, Candy.
Third string quarterback. Where have we heard that this year before? It's the year of the third string quarterbacks, and they're doing pretty well. I mean, I give Skylarthompson, a lot of credit. His dad was in the stands. I thought it was kind of cool when they flashed to him, and they were talking about how his dad is probably more nervous about him playing than he is actually of playing. It was cool to see. It was cool to see that Miami played and hung well, or came back to hang well with Buffalo. I was expecting more of the blowout. And actually this was of the games, this was a really good game. It was good to watch.
Yeah. I guess you could say I agree with everyone. Yeah, I thought the game would be a blowout and the Dolphins really hung with them. So more power to Miami. If I were the Dolphins as an organization, I would use this as a very positive building block because it always beckons the question, okay, what if Tua would have been healthy the whole time? Then perhaps they would have had a higher seeding but we'll never know. It's a hypothetical. But the one hypothetical is what if Tua would have been healthy. No, and it is amazing how you brought this up too, Mel, that now Cincinnati is at Buffalo. And, let's face it, these two teams saw each other for all the wrong reasons a few weeks ago. And I'll get to predictions later, but it's ironic how this matchup took place, in the final 8. So we'll definitely, God willing, see a full game there. And I'm looking forward to see how this matchup plays out. Of course, when am I going to know if I'll even see it? Because Candy and I will be up in Daytona this weekend, but we'll see. There's always DVRs. All right. One more Florida team to get to. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now are at a crossroads after losing 31-14 to the Dallas Cowboys. So this is a two-part question for everybody. Number one, what's up with the Tampa Bay Bucks? And the next thing will be what's up with Tom Brady. All right, I'm going to go back to you, Jordan.
Well, you look at this game, and Brady threw the ball 66 times. That's way too many times. They never established the running game. Of course, Dallas went off to that big lead, 18-0. But the fact of the matter is the Buccaneers never seem to get in rhythm either on offense or defense. As for Tom Brady, I don't think he wants to go out this way, but it really feels like this is the end. I think he's going to retire. He's going to be a free agent. I just don't see him going. I mean, I know San Francisco's been in discussion. The Raiders have been in the discussion. It just doesn't make sense. It's time for him to ride off into the sunset. But as a competitor, I know he doesn't want to go out this way, but it just seems like once the game ended, it really looked like this was the end, especially in his press conference.
Hey, Rick?
Yeah, I'm going to respectfully disagree with Jordan. I think Tom Brady is definitely going to come back. I said this many, many months ago. His ego will not allow him to retire. He just got a massive ego. He should have retired when he won the Super Bowl the first time. He didn't. he lost his family over it. So of course he's going to come back. I think he'll go to the Raiders, or possibly he can go back to New England. I think those are his two options. But I definitely do see him coming back because his ego won't allow it. They were flat. He looked bad. He looked old. Buccaneers are at crossroads. They just fired Leftwich, their coordinator as well, their offensive coordinator. So, they had to find a scapegoat. They found it with him. And Todd Bowles, I don't know. I mean, they had a lot of injuries. That's one thing about him. But they're at a crossroads. They need to get a quarterback. Maybe they could get Derek Carr. I don't know. So we'll see what happens with him. But for Brady, I definitely do see him coming back. But he should have retired a couple of years ago. It's just, unfortunately, his ego just won't allow him to retire.
All right, Travis.
Man, so what's going on with Brady? Goodness, that's a loaded question in and of itself. But yes,
come on, Travis. You think I'm not going to throw a loaded question on this?
Brady. All right, so
break you into this whole thing. You're going to realize everything I throw out there is loaded.
So obviously the man's going through losing his family because he made a choice, an off-season choice. The man's got, divorce proceedings and everything else. And just if you were to say someone had a bad season because of that, any dude in this room, any woman in this room would understand that, right? He's going through all of that. He's also older. And many people who've broken down the film will tell you that, hey, they don't run deep outs. They don't run outside of the hashes anymore in their offense. They've literally taken them out of the game plan unless you're running it from a tight end, a wide open guy. And, basically Brady doesn't have the arm to zip it in there without that being a pick six. Every time you've seen it, it's been an interception. And so, you have all those things going on. You can't even run certain, route combinations based on just that. And then you're playing against a team that's frankly better than you. That's a rough situation with all the injuries that they had going on, all throughout the whole season. And just all of it, it was not the greatest season. It was a train wreck. And we've known that not just this game. We've known that all season long. They have never looked pretty. It was just kind of one of those things that you hope they would figure it out. And it kind of just never materialized. So just basically, Brady's the kind of quarterback who doesn't like pressure up the middle. Well, they have offensive line issues from day one, training camp. And that's where all of his pressure is coming from. So where do you go from there? I guess that's the question of the hour, because I thought he looked washed this year. I thought he was done. But I thought Brady was done, 3 times in his career so far. So I'm probably the worst person to try to, predict where he's going to go. I think if he goes to a team with a great O-line, maybe the Raiders, pass protecting O-line like the Raiders, maybe he could, squeeze out another 2 years out of this, maybe with the right OC. But he should retire, in my personal opinion. That's the whole another conversation. With Tampa Bay, oh gosh, they have such a rebuild, because the majority of their team is just these older guys on these shorter contracts that they have an out within 1 year, 2 years max, and a lot of guys who are specifically they have to make some tough decisions this year, getting rid of the OC, likely getting rid of the coach. I'm guessing. I don't know if there's been any word on that just yet. Then yeah, they are in a world of hurt as far as that rebuild is concerned, because that's a multi-year rebuild at that point, just in all the important spots.
Okay, I just want to point out that Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving to get 1,000 subscribers. So please go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, hit the red button, boom. And then you'll be able to go out there and catch on our live streams as well, but a lot of our remote shows as well. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to my running back, Melfar Jr. Give us your take. This is a two-headed question. The Buccaneers at the crossroads and Tom Brady.
The Bucs are a bad football team. I mean, they're the best of the worst. That division, the NFC South, was not a very fruitful division this year. They limped into the playoffs. I don't know why anybody expected anything differently than what we saw. I mean, offensively, they've been anemic all year long. And asking a 45-year-old man to drop back 66 times is just not a recipe for winning. They never really tried to establish a running game. they just played poorly. You could see the time that there was the game plan. You really couldn't see what it was that they were trying to do. Obviously, with Tom Brady, he wants to get the ball out of his hands quick. So there's really no out routes or anything like that. Everything's kind of inside, and they just kind of sit on that stuff. They know he doesn't really want to hang in the pocket to try to push the ball deep, even though they threw it deep a couple times. One time was just off the fingertips of Mike Evans, but they're a bad football team, and they looked like a bad football team. And as far as Tom is concerned, I think he probably wants to play into his 50. He probably could if somebody would give him the opportunity to do that. But the thing with Tom is kind of the same thing with LeBron James. When you get that player on your team, you have to push all your chips to the middle. You have to be all in. And that's why Tampa Bay finds himself in the situation that they find themselves in. They got all the older players because they pushed all the chips to the middle so they could, hopefully with Tom Brady, they thought they might be able to win at least 2 Super Bowls, if not 3. They got 1, came back. Everybody, they just redid it and brought everybody back the next year and tried it again, and that didn't work out. This year, they added a couple guys, Julio Jones, who was pretty much absent all year long because of injuries. The older you get, the more prone you are to injuries, and obviously the more difficult it is for you to come back. But they just look at, and I hate it for Todd Bowles, and I hate it for Byron Leftwich as well, because Bruce Arians stepped back. He wanted to make sure that his guys got an opportunity, and they got an opportunity, and unfortunately, the Bucs look like the Jets look all those years when Todd Bowles was coaching there, and I feel bad. I hate it for him, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's Todd Bowles, if it was the injuries that they had. With Byron Leftwich, all of a sudden he can't call plays anymore. This is the same guy that was calling plays when they won the Super Bowl, same guy that called the plays last year. And now all of a sudden Bruce Arians steps away. Now he can't call plays. I don't know. It's a confusing situation for me as a fan watching it, particularly because I'm rooting for these two guys. But they were just a bad football team this year.
Candy.
So I'm going to bring it right back to where I always bring it back to. My Packers, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady. Neither one of them had the offensive line that they needed to this year to play consistently. If you had a better offensive line, you would have opened doors for the running game. You would then also, the short passes would come easier because you had an offensive line to protect. I think when you have these older quarterbacks that aren't as mobile, can't do a lot of running, your offensive line is that much more important. You need to spend money on them if that's what you want to do. If you want to keep these older quarterbacks. Now, if you had asked me this question when Rodgers was walking off the field and Tom Brady was walking off the field last night, which one I think would be they were retiring? From the way it looked, Aaron Rodgers looked like he was retiring. Now, if you heard him on the Pat McAfee show today, it sounds like he wants to come back and play now, whether it's for the Packers or not. And the same with Brady. I think they both have that desire. They both didn't go out in a game that they excelled in and that they didn't show their best. I don't think either one of them wants that to be their lasting impression. I think they want to go out on better games. I think they'll both be back. My question is will they be back on the same teams? I don't know.
Yeah, those are some pretty good points. Let me point out a couple things on the Tampa side. Number one, Rob Gronkowski wasn't walking through that door, to bail Brady out. And number two, the offensive line bolted for Cincinnati when Joe Burrow needed some reinforcement. So, and what do you have to look forward to? Well, Blaine Gabbert, right? Travis, you ever heard of him? Blaine Gabbert?
I know that guy.
Kyle Trask, you're molding him. So, and the one thing that Rick Curdy said that really intrigued me a little, I'm going to have to back you on this a little. I wouldn't rule out him going back to New England. I don't know about the Raiders. I don't know why it just doesn't.
Josh McDaniel and the Raider connection and Mark Davis is an idiot.
Yeah, but I don't see that one. Believe it or not, you said something that intrigued me. And now I'm going to bring out and actually compliment you for putting your journalist hat on again. My God, you're getting better at journalism, Curdy. You're scaring me a little bit.
I'm Walter Winchell.
Yeah, no, you learn from me. So I guess I don't know if that's good or not, but whatever. But that's a good segue to let everybody know in the future that JB Ellis and I are going to be debuting a show called The Celebrity and the Journalist, and I'm sure you can figure out which one's one if you know who they are. But you know what? Bill O'Brien is interviewing with the New England Patriots. For some reason or another, it wouldn't. I could see a Bill O'Brien, Tom Brady reunion in New England. I don't know why. Sometimes when you have very interesting gut feelings, then they tend to be what they are. I even told Candy a couple of days ago that I thought Jim Harbaugh was staying with Michigan. And then what happened yesterday? He told NFL suitors, I'm staying at Michigan. So lesson to be learned, if you're a journalist, and I know that you probably know this, Travis, is all that trust your gut, trust your instinct. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that there could be a reunion with Brady. And another fact I should mention that Bill Belichick is 25-25 without Tom Brady around. So who needed who more? Well, Bill, you know what? I've eaten crow on this broadcast, and I didn't think college basketball was meaningful until Florida Atlantic beat Florida. Then I really ate crow. So,
well, let me ask you that one. Let me challenge you on that one. I should say.
Go ahead.
Did Tom need Belichick more? Or did Belichick need Tom more? Because it seems like the Tampa Bay Bucks bought that championship. Not significantly different than the the Rams. Sorry, bought their championship and immediately got too injured to take. Basically, it's the same storyline. Offensive lines got too injured to take, and they couldn't run the offense around it. The same exact storyline for the Packers. These older, aging teams. They bought that championship.
Okay, but you know what? Can I ask you a question? I like being challenged, by the way. Thank you very much, Travis, for doing it. And here's what my response to that is going to be. You may have bought a championship, but you still get the ring, don't you? And which one has more rings?
Yeah.
Think about it. Hey, listen, let me tell you, how many championships did George Steinbrenner buy? And you know what? Here we are in South Florida. Wayne Huizinga bought one for the Florida Marlins at the time and sold off all the pieces. By the middle of that season, they couldn't call them the defending world champions because they all got exiled anyway. So,
all right. So these are fair points. All I was getting at was that Brady and Belichick may have both had, equal success or, average success, if not for the money aspect of it.
It's Brady because Belichick didn't win squat with Cleveland.
Okay, I like when you bring this up, but the reality is this, okay? Brady has 7 rings, and how many does Belichick have?
All right, but Belichick, the GM, and Belichick, the coach, are at odds. They always are. Belichick, the GM, sucks. Belichick, the coach, is great, and that's his problem.
He was great in Cleveland.
Oh gosh, come on.
Yeah, Nick Saban is his coordinator too.
He was great in New England, even in the season that he didn't have Brady, though. I mean, he made, Matt Castle?
Yeah, what did he do with Bledsoe?
NFL quarterback.
He didn't win anything with Bledsoe.
Bledsoe got hurt in the playoffs. That's how Brady got his job.
Right,
in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, but you know what, Travis? You do bring up some valid points. Reality is I don't care if you buy a championship or not, you're still hoisting the trophy and you're still getting a ring and you get all the things that go with it. But yeah, I mean, you're going to say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers invested some money, gave Tom Brady, hey, Rob Gronkowski, come on down to Florida. We can hang out when we're not at practice, okay? And we can go to Clearwater Beach anytime we want. It's okay. And by the way, Rob, if it's worth anything, there's no state income tax here either. Oh, okay. Right. We won't have a Boston Tea Party. We'll go out there and hang out on Clearwater Beach. So go figure. So, but no, I think it's a fair point, though. No, Travis, seriously speaking, I think it is a fair point. Who needed more? But in the end, Brady's got the last laugh because Belichick is 25-25 without him, and Brady had 1 title. And to me, where is he going to go? I mean, would we rule out a reunion up there? How far can the question really is should O'Brien get hired for that job? Can he get Mac Jones on track? Whereas Josh McDaniels had him going in the right direction, but then you decided to go to that so-called offensive system with Joe, I can't be a good judge, and Matt Patricia as Jeremy Ballreich, anointed him the name. So, you know, the legend of Jeremy Ballwright, whether he's on this show or not, lives on with Matt Patricia. The Detroit fans to know. So I hope that answers your question. We have a lot of fun on this show, Travis. You know that, don't you? As if can't. I know you're figuring that out. I mean, no, I mean, we talked about Tom Brady. You know, a lot of people were going to say whether he stayed on too long or not. Everybody's going to say that. But Candy makes a good point. Do each of those two quarterbacks want to leave with 8 and 9 regular season records? It's their last act.
Right. Yeah. That's a big question there.
Yeah, I don't
it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter because, I mean, look at Joe Namath. He left as a Ram. Nobody cares. So many. I mean, Emmitt Smith left as a Cardinal. Right. And nobody cares. So, I mean, it's all about ego. Where other people like Peyton Manning, he had horrible numbers, even though he won the Super Bowl. I'm sure he didn't want to end like that, but he was like, dude, I'm 40 years old. I can't throw the ball no more. It's time to walk away. And unfortunately, Tom Brady, his ego just won't allow him. He just got a massive, massive ego. I'm the great Tom Brady. I can't end my career like this. No, there's no way.
Well, I don't think it's ego. I mean, ego might be a part of it, but I mean, the guy has a true love for the game, and then you got to try to replace that. You know, he's a competitor, and you know, once you walk away from the game, you're done. That's it. You can't go back. And once he makes that decision, it's over. Then he's got to try to find something else that's going to fuel those competitive juices that he has inside of him. Now, I don't see him going back to New England. I mean, that's done. I mean, that chapter's over. I would like to see Bill O'Brien leave Alabama and go to New England. I think that'd be good. I think that'd be good for Mac Jones as well because he coached him in college. So, I mean, I think that'd be a good fit. Right. You know, Bill O'Brien's system. They kind of had a pro-style offense down there in Alabama. So I think that makes all the sense in the world for it. And he's been in New England before. So it makes all the sense in the world for Belichick to interview him and also hire him and give him the job. And plus that gives somebody else an opportunity down in Alabama because I'm really tired of Bill O'Brien down in Alabama, to be honest with you, because I just don't think his offense, I don't think he's keeping up with some of the other guys offensively, some of the other teams in that conference on the offensive side of the ball. Now the numbers might say otherwise, but I give it the eyeball test. My eyeballs are telling me that, they're just too predictable.
Okay. Well, some interesting points here. All right. Well, I got one more topic I want to get to. Then everybody's going to have a chance to have their own parting shot. For final 8 starting quarterbacks, you want to talk about the final 8 in terms of age. This is interesting. Trevorlawrence and Brock Purdy are both 23. Jalenhurts is 24. Daniel Jones is 25. Joe Burrow is 26. Josh Allen, 26. Patrick Mahomes, 27. Dak Prescott is a senior citizen at 29. My goodness.
Has Josh Allen got his second contract yet?
What's that?
Has Josh Allen got his second contract yet?
I don't know.
I think that should be this year, right?
Yeah, I think
it should be.
I think they'll resign him.
They will.
Now, I think that it is this year. All right, so you know what? Go back to Jordan again. The future looks pretty bright in the NFL for these studs, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, I did see that stat earlier in the week, and I forgot that Dak Prescott is as you call them, the older gentleman out of all of them. It just shows you that the NFL is now, you don't have the Tom Brady's or the Aaron Rodgers in the game in these playoffs anymore. It's the young guns game. So it'll be interesting to see how far these quarterbacks can go. I mean, Dak Prescott, like you said, is 29, and Patrick Mahomes is, younger than that. You just don't realize how young these guys are, but yet they're leading their teams to basically advancing in the playoffs, because usually it's a veteran quarterback. It's not the young guns. So it's just interesting that these guys are going to be in the NFL for a while, and they're going to have more runs in them. So it doesn't really matter how far they go this year. It's what will they do in the following years. It's just interesting that it's, guys that aren't 30 yet.
Yeah, I think one of the most intriguing parts before I turn over Rick Curdy is the fact you got Brock Purdy in San Francisco, and Trey Lance is supposed to come back next year as a second overall pick. If you're Kyle Shanahan and you're going into the offseason knowing Brock Purdy did a whale of a job getting us as far, where do we fit Trey Lance in? I guess if you're going to make an interesting trade-off, you go with Mr. Irrelevant to a lottery type of pick. How do you go away from Brock Purdy? I don't know. And you know what? I'm not a personnel guy. I'm going to turn over to Rick Curdy, though. Although, Jordan, you want to answer that one first before I let everybody evaluate on this? Lance and Purdy, who you got?
I would have to go with Trey Lance just because, you drafted him so high. I could see Brock Purdy as the backup, and then you get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. Okay, that's fair. Okay, Rick.
You want me to answer that question or about the quarterback?
Well, here it's a two-part question now. Okay. I just turned it into one.
For Trey Lance, I never liked him. I thought he was way overdrafted. They should have got rid of him. He hasn't done anything. He's been hurt. Brock Purdy, my goodness gracious, he's come out of nowhere. He's like Brady. It's like, who is this guy? Of course you're going to have to keep him. He's red hot. He looks like he's been in the league for 10 years, where Trey Lance has just been hurt. And, the little we've seen of him, he hasn't looked very good. And, I've never been a big Trey Lance fan. I just think they need to get rid of him. And for the quarterbacks, their ages, I mean, that's something we have in common. I just turned 29 myself, too. So I'm kidding. And so the future is bright. Josh Allen, I love Trevor Lawrence. Patrick Mahomes, my goodness, he's that young and he's like a veteran almost. It's amazing how what the NFL is getting younger. Hint, Tom Brady, hint, Aaron Rodgers, time to move on. So, the future is bright for the NFL, and you're going to see even more, great, fantastic quarterbacks. You're going to have two, I think, great quarterbacks coming into this draft. So the future is bright in the NFL.
Travis?
Well, yeah, I wanted to correct a statement I made earlier. Actually, I guess the Bills did re-sign Allen to a 6-year contract last year. I was not aware of that at all. So, yeah, still has 5 years left on his contract. And Pat Mahomes, I believe, still has 8 years left on his. So, yay, we're going to see these guys for a long time, unfortunately, because I do not like having to go through Kansas City for that AFC Championship and knowing that that's going to be pretty much for the rest of my life. It's not great. Not great, Bob. So as far as Brock Purdy, Trey Lance conversation, I'm not sure who stated it. It may have been Jordan earlier. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, you get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. That's a pretty easy one. And you keep the other ones, or if you want to trade one of them, so be it. I mean, you can also do that. Let them fight it out in training camp and kind of see where that lands. At the end of the day, you may be able to get someone to give you, a 3rd round pick, or maybe even a low 2nd or something like that if it's from a better team. Something along those lines. But I don't want to go too high or too low on this situation, just because I've seen a lot of quarterbacks who are a flash in the pan when you first see them. You got the Gardner Minshew, you have the Mike White, you have a lot of these guys who come out in those first few games, throw 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then defenses get more tape on them, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is not great. The 4 interceptions game, those 4 touchdown games turn into 3 turnover games. So don't go too crazy over it. Let them get through training camp, and we'll see kind of just where it lands there. As far as the quarterback ages, yeah, this is interesting because as the NFL shifts more to those college style offenses, you're just going to see a lot of these younger quarterbacks have more success. Like as we go down that list of all the quarterbacks, the majority of these guys are running those college style offenses. I mean, you got Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I mean, even Trevor Lawrence, for that matter, they're running these college offenses. I mean, one of the oldest ones, Dak Prescott, is running more of a pro-style offense. All right, and that's kind of working for them, just to not have him throw the ball as much. So we have to start having those additional conversations of, all right, cool. These are guys, they're younger, and that's great, but there also is an injury aspect to this. Some of these guys will have injuries. They're running the ball more, they're taking more hits, right. And that's going to be the interesting part of that. So it's going to be the RG3 conversation of who's going to just outlast these other guys and be the same guy when they get older.
Great points, Travis. All right, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great situation to have if you're the San Francisco 49ers, where you have three capable quarterbacks that you can go in there and win ball games with. I've never been that high on Trey Lance, only because I haven't seen enough of him. I haven't seen it. He didn't play that many games in college. The few games that he did play when he was healthy in the NFL didn't really impress me. I've had an opportunity to watch a lot of the other quarterback, Purdy, right? I got an opportunity to watch a lot of him play because I was watching Breece Hall play. And, you look at his story, and the guy, I think he's a 3 or 4 year starter. So he's played a lot of football, has had a lot of snaps in big time football in a big conference. And so, it doesn't surprise me that he's doing what he's doing because the guy has played a lot of football. So I would be worried only to the extent that it's not a meritocracy in the NFL. We know that. I mean, your draft status is going to determine, how the club views you. So when you're the number 2 overall pick, you have to prove that you cannot play. When you're Mr. Irrelevant, you have to prove that you can play. And they're going to give you a lot more chances to prove that you can't play because they're trying to validate that decision that they made to give up all those draft picks or whatever they had to do to move up to grab you at that spot. So he's going to get all the chances in the world to prove that he cannot play, Trey Lance is. And, unfortunately for Brock Purdy, now it depends, again, we're talking about egos here. These are egos, GM ego, coach's ego. Me, I put my ego in my back pocket, get what I could for Trey Lance, and I'm a ride with Brock Purdy. That's what I would do. I'm going to ride with him. And, if Jimmy, if we're able to get something for him, I can't remember what his contract situation is. If he's a free agent at the end of the year, I think, then I guess we'll get a compensatory pick or something like that if he goes somewhere. But, I'll ride with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance will be the backup. That's what I would do. And as far as football's a young person's game. And like Travis was saying, you have a lot of these college style offenses now in the pros. A lot of these guys don't get under the center. I mean, they don't get under the center in high school. They don't get under the center in college. And, very seldom are they under the center in the NFL as well. So it doesn't surprise me. And it shows really that the future's in good hands with the quarterbacks that they have coming up right now, with the young quarterbacks that they have. The future's in good hands. So Tom and Aaron, they can ride off in the sunset knowing that, they were the young guns at one particular time. And so folks had to get out the way for them to get in, for them to shine. Now it's time for them to get out the way and let these young guys shine and let some other young guys come up, shine as well.
Candy?
Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? Trey Lance, you have to remember when he played this year, there was no George Kittle. There was no Christian McCaffrey. So he definitely didn't have the same weapons that Brock Purdy's had to play with. Is that a fair assessment? I don't know. Is it a good problem to have? Of course it is. They both are very good quarterbacks. I think it depends on if you're going to surround the team with and what coach wants to run plays with, because I think Trey Lance has a little more feet to him. I could be wrong there, but I think he rushes a little bit more. So I think it depends on what offense you really want to run and what offensive line you have. If you're going to pay a lot of offensive linemen and you're going to have more running plays and you want a more mobile quarterback, then Trey might be. But again, it's a good problem to have both of those quarterbacks. I don't see Jimmy staying, but knowing that that they have those two quarterbacks.
Excellent point. You know what I'm going to say? The NFL's in good hands with these young quarterbacks as well as the other ones coming up. You know what? I'm going with Mel. Okay. And that's this. I would go with Purdy, check ego at the door, trade Lance if we get him or make him the backup. Doesn't make any difference to me. And I covered the Lions for many, many years. I'll never forget the time when Wayne Fonts had a philosophy that you don't go out there and see a quarterback lose his job due to an injury. Well, you know what? You know who that quarterback is that won the Lions' only playoff game since 1957? A guy by the name of Eric Kramer. Now, And the Lions, yeah, that's the age part of me, Travis. Okay. Eric Kramer should never have lost his job to Rodney Peete. And to this day, I call the Lions situation the curse of Eric Kramer. So take it for whatever it is, according to Chris Barman. Okay. The curse of Eric Kramer. So, yeah, no, I'm with you, Mel, all the way. I think Brock Purdy should be the starter. But as Candy said, it's a good problem to have. So take it from there. And now what I'm going to do now is give every one of you guys a chance to predict the games. You don't have to give me points or anything like that. And then we're going to go on to our parting shot. So, hey, we got 4 games. We might as well get predictions around. No, I don't want to endorse that show, but because I like part of the interruption better, but forget that. But at any rate, okay, we're going to start off with Jordan Long. Jaguars at Kansas City. Who you got?
I have to go Kansas City.
Okay. Giants at Philly.
Philadelphia.
Bengals at Bills.
I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going with Cincinnati.
Okay, final one. Dallas at San Francisco.
Got to go with the San Francisco 49ers.
All right. Rick Curdy, you're next. Want me to repeat the games or do you know them?
Okay. Well, I'm going with my heart and upset. I'm going to go with Jacksonville.
Okay. Giants at Philly.
I have Philadelphia.
Bengals at Bills.
I have Cincinnati. I think they're the more consistent team.
Dallas at San Francisco.
Oh, I have 49ers, and I'm going to say in a rout.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Travis, you know the drill. 2 down, 2 to go. Jaguars at Kansas City. Are you able to be biased or objective on this one since we're both riding the case?
I'm objectively saying it's going to be the Jaguars. Okay. I actually rewatched the first game yesterday when they played back in November. I forget the which week it was, but the game should have been 27-27 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There's a few things that happened in that game that made it ugly. But long story short, I'm going Jags.
Okay, Giants or Philly?
Philly. I don't think that's going to be a close game.
Bengals or Bills?
Like Rick said, I'm actually going Bengals on that one.
Finally, Dallas at San Francisco.
I'm going to be a contrarian there and go the Cowboys. I just don't expect Brock Purdy to have an above average game every game, and I think that's what it would take to win that one.
Fair enough. All right, Mel. Jaguars at Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Giants at Philly.
Philly.
Bengals at Bills.
I'm going with the Bills, but I'm rooting for the Bengals. My oldest daughter's godfather is in the front office there, so I have to root for the Bengals. But my head is telling me the Bills.
So, all right, well, we'll rely on the head prediction here for the sake of conversation. Dallas and San Francisco.
Yeah, 2 teams I really can't stand, to be honest with you. And it was like voting for president. Just the lesser of the 2 evils here, and I'm gonna have to go with Cowboys.
Why is it that painful that you're going to
yes
this to a president?
Yes.
Well, we've taken politics to a different level on this show.
Oh man.
All right, Candy. Why don't we let you shake the laughter? All that's pretty good, Mel. You come up with some good ones, buddy.
So I'm going to say Jacksonville. I think they're just playing with a lot of emotion. They have a lot of things going, and
you guys are homers.
Yeah,
I picked them.
You did?
Yeah, I picked Jacksonville.
You're on the payroll. That's why.
I think they've come back and given teams games for how many weeks in a row. And yes, the Kansas City might, pull out to a lead, but I think Jacksonville's going to come back and give them a game. And luck, you might, play a part into it. Let's face it. I said Trevor Lawrence is 37-0 on Saturdays.
They're playing on Saturday, right?
Yep.
His first loss.
They do play Saturday, yes. Okay, the next game, Scott, was
Giants of Philadelphia. Bengals at Bills.
That one's kind of tough.
Why,
I still think
we make things easy around here.
I know you don't make things easy. I know firsthand you don't make things easy.
I may have a fractured tailbone, but I'm not fracturing people's heads here.
I'm going to go this time. I'm going to go with Buffalo. I think they're playing with a lot of heart, and they're playing at home. And Cincinnati, their offensive line to me just hasn't held up as well as I'd like. So I'm going to say Buffalo.
Finally, Dallas at San Francisco.
So if the Dallas team that played last night comes to play, it would be Dallas. But I think Dallas has been very inconsistent this year. And I think because 5 days off, 5 days rest, traveling from one coast to the other coast, I'm going to say San Francisco takes this one.
All right. Well, I guess if you want to call me a homer, Mel, I'll accept it. I'll bite the bullet. I don't care. Or eat the crow or whatever you want to say, but I'm going with Jacksonville.
If you want to continue to get your press passes, I understand.
Hey, you know what? I got to be good to these people. They've been good to me for a lot of years. David Wolf and Dan Edwards.
No shame in your game. I understand.
No. These are good people. I wouldn't know Travis. I wouldn't know Kyle Nash, as well as a lot of my other good friends, the late David Levin, too, Alex Smith, and all that. So, hey, well, welcome back, Brett Gardapi. Just in time to let you know that we'll be calling you pretty soon about coming back on Fire Up Wisconsin. So glad you're able to do that. Candy put his stuff up there. I'll let you read it before I get to my predictions. All right. Good to see you, Brett. You're going to be getting a message very soon about joining the crew on Monday night for Fire Up Wisconsin. So there you have it. So my predictions are I'm going to go with Jacksonville anyways. All right. Philadelphia. Well, you know, if Jalenhurts doesn't get hurt, you're okay. If he does get hurt, the Giants might be able to pull off the upset. But for all intents and purposes, Jacksonville, Philadelphia, I'm going with Cincinnati. And the reason why I'm going with them is this team nearly beat the Rams a year ago. They're a team that's on a mission to get back there again. And Joe Burrow, to me, is a stud. He really is. He got some pretty good wideouts. So I'm going with the Bengals. And I'm going to go with the 49ers over the Cowboys, okay? And I just like what Purdy's doing. And, you know, Dallas has a few problems. Number one, okay, you know, they are regenerating their bodies after last night. And Dallas, by the way, is a field goal kicker situation. If you can't find a field goal kicker, here's what I would suggest that the Cowboys do, okay? See if you can find – I got a great one for you guys. You know, I don't watch a lot of movies, but this is one I really like. Once upon a time, there was a kicking mule called Gus who used to kick field goals. So if Maher doesn't work out, let's see if you can find a mule that kicks field goals, and you might be able to have that extra point or two. Bad joke, but I had no point knowing that 3 points or 4 points were missed because of this guy, and yet he's been a good kicker all year. But nevertheless, if you don't have a kicker, let's see if we can go to Disney and see if we can find Gus the Mule, and that might be the difference in the game. And I guarantee you, no lineman will want to get by there because they don't want to get – well, of course, they have helmets. They get kicked them in the mouth. It won't hurt them anyway. So there you go. All right, so our parting shots for the night. Jordan, you know this drill.
I do. So, obviously, the Denver Broncos interviewed Jim Harbaugh. Well, Harbaugh obviously went to Michigan. They're doing Sean Payton. I believe Harbaugh was number 2. Sean Payton was number 1. Well, what happens if we don't get those guys as the head coach of the Denver Broncos? What is our plan? Is it going to be Dan Quinn, Eric Bieniemy, or Frank Reich? I just don't know the direction they're going to go if they don't get Sean Payton, but I do know they want someone with experience. So out of those 3 that I just listed, it would probably be either Dan Quinn or Frank Reich.
Very good. I like it. All right, Rick.
Well, one thing I'm getting tired of are these armchair experts at home, sitting at home in their underwear, eating their SpaghettiOs, criticizing, you know, referees in the NFL. We saw a great game, a classic game with Jacksonville and the Chargers. And we saw 2 of the greatest quarterbacks right now, the young quarterback, Trevorlawrence and Justin Herbert. And they both played great. And in the first half, all you hear is Trevorlawrence stinks. He sucks. He's overrated. Go away, you suck. And then, of course, they win. And guess who sucks now? Justin Herbert. He's overrated. He sucks. These are 2 great quarterbacks. Why can't we just watch the game and enjoy 2 great quarterbacks? Why does one always have to be better than the other? Justin Herbert is the first quarterback ever to have his first 3 years, 4,000 or more yards. Peyton Manning didn't do that. Dan Marino, John Elway, he's the only one. And Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's won championships in college. He looks great. I mean, to me, he's going to be the next Peyton Manning. These are 2 great quarterbacks that we need to talk about. And why people keep wanting to say this guy's better than this one, like LeBron is better than Jordan. I'm tired of it. They're both great quarterbacks, great athletes. Let's just enjoy it.
All right. Really good. I like that one. All right, Travis, can you top Rick's?
Oh no! I absolutely cannot top that. No, but I won't try. I'll just give my parting shots and say I'm here to give Mr. Doug Pederson his flowers. That is what I am here for. At the 4-minute mark in the second quarter, going into the half, he decided just to stop running 2-by-2 offense. He's just decided I'm no longer running, one wide receiver and a tight end on one side, and then 2 wide receivers the other side, or whatever variation of that. He just decided to stop doing it. They ran all empty, all trips, all quads from that point on for the rest of the game against the Los Angeles Chargers. That was the difference in the game. He basically took cover 3, Liz Rip out of their playbook. And all 3 interceptions that the Chargers had with Sante Samuel Jr. all came on that same coverage. And Brett Coleman actually brought that out on Twitter after watching the All 22. I mentioned something similar to Kyle during the game. And I'm like, dude, he just went all empty, all trips, and just said, and he made them play only quarters coverage, only quarter half, only these basic coverages, so they couldn't run that old Nick Saban defense. And that was the difference in the game. They literally just ran them out of the defense that they were having all their success in. And once they were playing basic defenses, he just exploited those basic defenses with his play calling. Like, it was really smart game planning in the middle. And he's just like, all right, you're struggling with this, Trevor. You've thrown 3 of your 4 interceptions against this defense. Cool. I'm just going to take this out of the offense. We're not going to run it anymore. And that was the difference in the game. And it was like, all right, your flowers. Great job, sir. And that's why I love Doug Pederson. He pencil whips the other team.
Very good. Well, I've gotten I've been there a few times now. I've gotten a feel for Pederson, and I'll say what I've said all along. This guy has any kind of success there, he'll get a statue in front of TIAA Bank Stadium before you could turn it around. This guy will.
Build it right now.
Yeah, well, he's building his legacy after a 9-8 mark, and you only imagine how appreciated it is. Let me tell you, Shad Khan, glad he didn't have to say a whole lot during the season. Whether he takes a nap in his owner's box or not, at least he doesn't have to lean on his general manager and coach. I've heard him taking a nap there anyways, but it's sure when you don't have to answer to the media and you have a coach that knows what the heck he's doing. And by the way, he has 2 Super Bowls in his pocket. Why not? So yeah, I can see a statue, but that was really good. I like the thing. All right, we'll turn over to Mel. Give me some parting shots, my friend.
It's hard to listen to these talking heads this time of the year because if you really would listen to them, I mean, all the coaches would be fired. To say that this guy from San Diego should be fired, I don't necessarily. I mean, they talk about it so publicly, and they're already putting new coaches in that position, and the team has a coach. Sean Payton right now is the hot guy. He won 1 Super Bowl. Okay, we haven't heard anything about. We don't hear anything much about Jim Caldwell. He's been a very successful NFL head coach. I mean, he took Indianapolis to a Super Bowl, albeit they did lose to New Orleans, but he did go to the Super Bowl. He did a great job up there in Detroit, but he's not talked about in the same way as Sean Payton. And Sean Payton, and I'm not saying he's not a great coach, but we haven't seen Sean Payton without Drew Brees. He's had Drew Brees the whole time. And when he didn't have Drew Brees, they weren't all that great. They didn't look all that great. So, you got to be careful what you ask for. And, these owners spend a lot of money on these coaches, and they're smart guys. I mean, they didn't get to be multi-billionaires because they're dumb. These are some very intelligent people. And for these talking heads on these talk shows, these sports talk shows, to constantly be talking about this guy needs to get fired, need to replace him with this guy, just need to pump your brakes for a minute, man. I like what they're doing in San Diego, or excuse me, with Los Angeles, with the Chargers. Let's see what happens here. Now they've gotten rid of the offensive coordinator. Let's see who they bring in, and let's see what happens. Justin Herbert has had his success. 1 year Anthony Lynn was there, and then in the last couple of years, it's been the guy that's there right now. I can't think of his name.
Brandon Staley.
But, yeah, they're doing fine. So let's just pump our brakes for a minute. Let's see how this all plays out. Give all these guys an opportunity to put their program in place, get their players and all that, and let's see how everything shakes out.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, Candy, got another one in here. You put Brett's comments up already?
Yep.
Well, Steve O'Brien, Los Angeles had one of their best seasons in a long time. They're not going to fire the coach. They had a meltdown. They had played the one bad half and they lost. Doesn't mean that the coach is going to get fired. You know, Steve, that's probably going to be the windup. But when I left the game, I had a feeling that Staley could be fired. But that's why you have a little time to cool down a little bit and let it all sink in. I guess the trip from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean allows emotions to cool a little bit. So, well, thanks, Steve. In fact, I want to thank everybody in the chat room that's participated, from George Eichhorn to Beth Truesdale Greenberg, Jennifer Matthews, Lewis, Brett Gardaby, and Steve O'Brien. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. All right, Candy, give me your parting shot.
My parting shot is kudos to the NFL fans. We have seen good football, end of the regular season. Games mattered at the end. Games were good this weekend. And how do we show our appreciation? The average crowd size at the NFL game during the 2022 regular season was 69,442, the highest mark since 2016, and the second largest figure in the last 19 years. The league also set a new record for total attendance at 18.8 million, though I understand that number is increased because we had a 17th game this year. What team had the biggest attendance increase? Scott, your Detroit Lions, they increased their attendance by 23.1%, followed by the Jacksonville Jaguars at 10.8%, and the Washington Commanders at 10.15%. The one that had the biggest decline that among the teams that didn't lose a home game to a game played internationally would have been the Bears. They dropped down 1.7%. Across the league, 96.7% of all seats were sold, an increase from the pre-pandemic mark of 94.6% in 2019. Kudos to the fans.
Great stuff, Candy. Kudos to you for digging that nugget up. That was fantastic. Well, I have a couple. So, first of all, we talk about Doug Pederson. All right. Byron Leftwich, you went from a potential head coach to Jacksonville, and you overplayed your hand, because you really did. I think Jacksonville wanted you to a disaster in Tampa. Well, guess what? You're not coaching there anymore. But he is rumored to go to Pittsburgh, but that guy had an opportunity to get a head coaching job. So you want to talk about the best move that didn't happen? Well, that was one of them. But my real parting shot, and I was surprised nobody picked up on this one, and that's why I had a second one, because sometimes Curdy gets these and he doesn't. We're talking about money. Everybody talks about Bobby Bonilla having a great agent. But you know who had a better agent than Bobby Bonilla for the next 5 years? Cliff Kingsbury. Why? $27.5 million for the next 5 years, and he buys a one-way ticket to Thailand. So you know what? I don't want to hear anything from coaches at all. Doesn't make any difference to me. I'm going to Thailand, one-way ticket. You know what? I'm going to pay the international phone rate to listen to you. Who knows what he's going to do in Thailand? But you know what? To me, that's not a bad way to spend the next 5 years if you want to get out of the game. And I'm sure that $27.5 million will last a little ways out in Thailand. So more power to you, Cliff. You know, with getting all that money being doled out to coaches, he's using it the right way. And I've never been to Thailand, but I hear it's a pretty nice place with some pretty good beaches. There you go. All right, well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Inside the Pigskin. But before we sign off here, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to go ahead and let everybody know how they get a hold of it. We're going to lead off with you, Jordan.
So you can find me on Twitter at SportsScoop1 here on the South Florida Tribune. I'm usually on 108 Stitches, of course. I'm in the Pigskin when needed. On the Sideline Sports Network on Mondays, you can find me on the NBA on Megan Price's NBA Carousel. I also have a show called Under Review that is posted on Fridays. That is my take on Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports headlines as well. I'm also on various Sideline Sports shows when needed. And I have a blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com.
All right, Rick, you're next.
You can find me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there. Please sign it. We're trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And you can find me on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy. And if you have any comments or questions, you can email me at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
I'll turn over to you, Mel.
Find me on all the social media at Melfar Jr., whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Find out what we have going on. Not going to do anything this year for the youth, but just keep following along to see what we have going on in Detroit and also down here in Atlanta for the youth at melfar.org.
All right, Travis. Well, obviously you made a few friends tonight. You already had two going into the broadcast, so
Yes,
I have to repeat all your information. I want to thank you, though, before you do that, for being our special guest tonight. Hopefully, if you're interested, we'll love to bring you back on another time whenever you're available. So, Travis, thank you very much. We've enjoyed the time we spent together up at TIAA Bank Stadium. So go out there once again and let everybody know, Travis, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, man, I definitely enjoyed myself, and yeah, anytime you have an opening, I am here for it. I really enjoyed talking with all the fellas and lady. You can find me on Twitter at Trav Likes Bacon. Because again, I'm that one vegan who happens to also like meat. Weird. You can find me on Facebook, Travis D. Holmes. You can find a little of my work on thestudentofthegame.com. And I'm also, again, the contributing member on the Student of the Game podcast. And you should see me around on various different podcasts. I do hits here and there. So if I just happen to pop up on one of your podcasts over the next few weeks, hey, that's kind of where you'll find me. So thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to bringing you back. I think the one thing I really enjoyed about your thing is the thing that stands out is how you have me challenge about buying a championship. That was fun to talk about. That was cool stuff.
It's a legitimate question, and I'm here for it.
I like that.
Let me tell you, let me put it out there on record right now that, you know what, I don't care if anybody on any panel ever wants to challenge me. I like it because it's called stimulating conversation. Anytime you can stimulate somebody like me that's long-winded, do it. I don't even care. I don't have an ego the size of the Titanic where I can't handle it either way. The reality of the situation is this. If it's something that's called stimulus response, bring it on. All right, Candy, you know what? I'll just say this. For those of you that are looking at us on YouTube and Facebook, you can find me on Twitter at Tribune South. Candy, take it away. Give them all the good stuff. I've enjoyed being on this show with a tremendous crew. All right, Candy, take it home.
So please hit that red subscribe YouTube at South Florida Tribune on the YouTube. We have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com. If you want to give us any ideas, or if you'd like to sponsor the show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941 or email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can find many of our shows. We have Fire Up Michigan typically on Mondays. We're going to debut or move Fire Up Wisconsin to Mondays as well. On Tuesdays, you can find me on the Sideline Sports on 3 Chicks in a Pod or Chicks and Salsa. And then you can find me here on Inside the Pigskin on Tuesdays or Thursdays, depending on when we are doing it. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is normally on Tuesdays. Wednesdays is Sports Exchange. Let's see, which ones am I missing? No Limits.
Well, No Limits is going to be coming back on. We'll be doing a lot of one-on-one interviews as well. So, and The Real Nowhere with Willie Epting. So we have a couple that we'll be doing on the weekend when things, the logjam slows down a little bit. Go ahead, Candy.
So again, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We are striving for 1,000. Will you be the 1,000th subscriber? If you want to listen to our show, you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. As long as I can speak, you can listen. Again, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. I want to say thanks on behalf of Scott, Jordan, Rick, Travis, Mel, and myself. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy the next round of the playoffs.